Jacob Shepard.
Thank you very much, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and honored guests. In 1996, my life changed in two fundamental ways. First, my wife and I married. And the second is that Pepper came into our lives. And I would like to take this time and tell you a little bit about our life with Pepper. My wife and I married in April of 1996. And about a month after we got married, I was sent out into the field. My wife and I were both soldiers in the Army. And going out to the field means that I had to go do some training. It was for 3 weeks. When I returned home and I opened up the door, there was something there that had not been there when I left. I was greeted by this small black fur of feline fluff. Now, I wasn't sure where this thing had come from, but in putting my bags away, I spied the water and food dish, and I came to the conclusion that it had not merely wandered into our home. I got back in my car and I headed to the motor pool where my wife worked as a mechanic. As I entered the maintenance bay, my wife climbed up out of the grease pit, covered in oil from the vehicles in her hair and smeared on her face and on her coveralls. She walked towards me, her face a blank mask. She walked up to me and asked, "Have you been home yet?" "Yes," I replied. "Is there something you want to explain?" "Isn't he cute?" Yes, he's very cute, but he was never cuddly. To explain this to you, I have to introduce our son. About a year later, we welcomed our first child, Gavin, into our family. Now, when he was born, the 2 days that he spent in the hospital, I spent most of that time in the hospital with my wife and my son. And my wife really, really wanted to come home, so exactly 48 hours later, she demanded to be released from the hospital. That was at 11 o'clock at night, and the hospital wasn't too accommodating, but we didn't get home until about midnight. I walked into the house, carrying Gavin in his little travel system, and I set him down on the bed. And Pepper jumped up to investigate what was this new thing in the household. And as he got in close to sniff, his whiskers brushed against Gavin's face, causing Gavin to mew and stretch. Pepper had no idea what was going on and immediately reared back, fur on end, and hissed. This was to become Pepper's default treatment of all children. When in doubt, hiss. But what was interesting about Pepper is that even though he didn't like children, he was always suspicious of them. Whenever one of our sons was sick or sad, Pepper was a trusted companion for him. Then finally, in January, my wife and I woke up on a Sunday morning to find our cat not acting like our cat. Over time, him being 12 years old, he had lost a bit of that spring in his step, and being a cherished pet at that age, you forgive them for that. But this wasn't normal. This wasn't what he had become. This was something more. And when we pet him that morning, he was barely moving anything more than his head. We noticed that he had lost a dramatic amount of weight very quickly. And he responded to our touch as though we were in pain. This, of course, made us very, very worried. I gathered my sons together and I told them, listen, you need to keep quiet. You need to keep the house as peaceful as possible. Pepper is very sick. While my wife grabbed the phone book and was frantically calling any vet that would make an office visit on a Sunday. After about a half an hour of searching, she found a veterinarian and rushed Pepper off. 2 hours and several $100s later, we had a diagnosis. Pepper had diabetes. This was manageable. This is something that we could deal with. So they sent him home with a bag of special food and insulin to be administered twice a day. Initially, it worked very, very well. He He regained some of that spring in his step. He was again hissing at the kids and annoying the other cats. But that was very temporary. Less than 2 weeks later, I woke up on a Friday morning to find him lying on the floor of our son's room. Remember, this is the cat that doesn't like kids. He never went in there without my wife or I present. So something was definitely wrong. We did what we could to make him comfortable, hoping that this was something that was temporary, that another shot of insulin would help to wake him up again, that a little bit more food, or maybe just some rest, would help. It did. And on that Saturday, my wife took him into the vet, and the vet confirmed our worst fear. Pepper would likely not last the night. He was suffering what appeared to be kidney failure. And they don't do kidney transplants on cats. So my wife held our precious cat in her arms while the vet administered the medicine and watched his life slowly ebb away. Animals have an amazing ability to teach us many things. That love can be absolute, but is never perfect. That we can spend our entire lives with something at arm's reach, never fully appreciating what it is until it's gone. And that the pain we feel when it is gone is the residue of the love that we share. At home, since that time, we've shared our stories about Pepper. We've laughed and we've cried. And we continue to learn more about us through that sharing. And I hope that for many years to come, Pepper will continue